So let me give you a little history of the LA Rams football team. I followed the Rams for 42 years of my life. With a small anomaly in the mid 90s when they left Los Angeles, because I was upset at Georgia Frontier, the owner of that team. I stopped following them for a few years there, probably between when they left and right around a few years. Yeah, actually, all the way up until the Super Bowl of '99. So if they left in '94, I think first year in '95 in St. Louis, I believe '95 through call it '98. I didn't follow the team, and those few years there, I don't remember too much of. But in regards going all the way back to Los Angeles, going back to the first game I ever watched was actually Super Bowl 14, Rams Steelers, January of 1980. So, and I remember a lot specifically through the 80s, right? And it was interesting because the Rams were a team, or always have been a team, that have always come up just short. We saw them losing a number of NFL championships in 40s, 50s, 60s. Now they did win a couple. They won one in Cleveland. Let's see if I get my year straight. 47, and then I believe they won in LA in 51, I believe is what it was. And ironically enough, that was actually the city of Los Angeles' first professional championship that the city ever won, before the Dodgers, for the Lakers, for the Kings, before anybody else. And it's been since that time that, now I could be wrong on the year, but it's right around there. But it's been since that time that the Rams have always had really good, strong teams, right? Through the Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen years, and a bunch of other players. You go through Vince Ferragamo, Eric Dickerson. They made the playoffs a lot. They won that division a lot. 70s, they won something like 6 or 7 straight division titles and could never get to the Super Bowl. Always wound up getting knocked out by the likes of the Cowboys or the Vikings in that era. And they were a team that always came up just short. And when you get to the Super Bowl 14, finally meeting the Steelers, who were a juggernaut at that point and coming so close. And unfortunately, Vince Ferragamo, who had a great year, was still one of my favorite players of all time, threw the interception late in the fourth quarter, and the Steelers iced it. It was kind of disappointing to the city at the time. And then something happened, right? I think it was a year or two after that, Georgia Frontier, the owner of the Rams, moved the Rams to Anaheim. Now, that was interesting. I'm not going to get into the politics of the stadium issues, which seems to be almost in every city now. Who's going to build the stadium and who's going to pay for it? But for whatever reason, Georgia Frontier moved the team to Los Angeles. Moved the team to Orange County. Now, on one hand, Los Angelinos were kind of like, okay, it's a different town, different cities, the Iron Curtain, right? LA, much more diverse community, diverse culture. At the time, Orange County was predominantly white, so you had these cultural factors involved there already. But then something else happened. The Raiders moved to Los Angeles. Was it 82, 83, right around there? And I think it was in 1983, second year in Los Angeles, that the Raiders won the Super Bowl. And it was at that moment in time, the combination of the Rams going down to Orange County and the Raiders coming in and winning the Super Bowl, immediately the Raiders stole the heart of the city of Los Angeles, and the fan base became a problem. And that cultural divide with Rams fans became bigger, or at least with the city of Los Angeles. And so then you got the hip hop culture, the rap era, because the Raiders have these, black and silver uniforms, and they got this rugged kind of image of pirating, whatever you want to call it there. The badass, we're going to knock you, punch you in the mouth. We're the rugged football team. The Rams were seen as sort of this limelight Los Angeles team that abandoned the city. And with the Raiders winning the Super Bowl, the city of Los Angeles had their winner. And here are the Rams down, still playing in Orange County. So we progress to the 80s. And for the most part, the Rams have really good football teams. The Raiders kind of start to tail off by the end of the 80s, right? It begins to struggle. I think by 87, 88, they begin to struggle. The Rams keep winning for a few years after that. And we really get to a pinnacle point of the 1989 season where the Rams have a very good team, but they face their dreaded arch rival, the San Francisco 49ers, in the 1989 NFC title game. And that was the game of the Phantom Sack, where Jim Murray went down thought he was feeling that he was going to get sacked when there was nobody around him. And it was kind of an infamous play that kind of defined that era of the Rams football team. Now, in my mind, Jim Everett was a good quarterback. It was just a game where the 49ers overwhelmed and dominated the game. The 49ers were just a better team. They came out with a better game plan that day. But it really cemented their end in Los Angeles before the move to St. Louis, because it was following that game that the demise of the organization came about. I believe John Robinson retired after that, somewhere in between. I don't remember exactly what was after the 89 season, but the Rams went through a final 3 or 4 years of losing before Georgia Frontiere picked up the team and took them to St. Louis. And of course, the city of St. Louis welcomed them with open arms, gave them a stadium, all that good stuff. And then we go through a few more losing years, and then we get to the greatest show on turf, and they win the Super Bowl there. And it really cemented the Rams, sort of in the history of the Super Bowl era. They finally got it. They finally got that Super Bowl in the Super Bowl era, but it was in St. Louis, not Los Angeles. And here we are now 22 years later after the move to St. Louis, and the Rams decide to come back. Well, what's happened in that 22-year period? Or really, should I say about 35-year period since they left Los Angeles, if you include their exodus from Los Angeles to Anaheim, right? You've had somewhere between 22 and 35 years of Los Angeles football fans finding other teams, particularly when the 49ers were winning, particularly when the Cowboys were winning, the Packers, the Broncos in many ways. And the Ram fan base just dwindled away, because a lot of the Ram fan base was old school fans that were from the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. That fan base begins to die. And because you effectively have no more Rams in Los Angeles, there's no way to build a Rams franchise, or should I say fan base, in Los Angeles anymore. That old school generation dies off. You got a couple of hardcore guys like me who are always loyal to the team because we remember them from, again, the late 70s and the early 80s. That fan base dies off. And so they move back after 22 years in St. Louis, effectively 35 years away from Los Angeles. And now they're trying to consolidate the heart of the city, when in fact, these fans, these younger generations of the past 10, 20, 30 years have been following other teams this whole time. And this is why I said a championship in Los Angeles is very important. It will consolidate the fan base, I think. And the Rams have needed that for a while. Now, obviously, they got to the Super Bowl a couple years back against the Patriots. That was disappointing. They lost that one. I think the loss of Cooper Kupp was big in that one. I think that could have had a difference, but can't point out injuries are part of the game, just like everybody does, and it is what it is. So that's why when you look at this NFC title game come Sunday, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because really the 49ers put the stake in the heart for the Rams being in Los Angeles their first time around back in that 89 NFC conference title game. And this is a chance to kind of rewrite history and get the fan base to grow, get them, again, to consolidate the heart of Los Angeles. I think ultimately they need to win the Super Bowl, get that title here. Listen, the Lakers have won titles. The Dodgers have won titles. The Kings have won Stanley Cups. The Rams need that Super Bowl. And I think we can't underscore that cultural difference of the 1980s when the Rams moved down to Orange County and the Raiders moved in. That Raider fan base really exuberated or took over the heart of Los Angeles almost immediately because they won that Super Bowl. And that is the challenge that the Rams has faced culturally. It's why they have one of the smallest fan bases in the country still to this day. Though I think it's growing under McVay. I think he's done a great job. I mean, listen, McVay, he's a third winningest coach in the NFL since he took over. He's done a remarkable job. This team is always battling. It's always in the playoffs. And it's always exciting because of the way they do things in LA now. It's quite different, to be honest with you. Rams back in the 80s, I remember, one of the most conservative organizations that there were. They never liked to overplay players. They never traded draft picks away. They kind of sit in their spot. They drafted, and they let their coaches coach up their players. Well, hey, this is new ownership now, and it's kind of exciting the way they run things right now. But I think we have to understand when you see 40% of the stadium filled with 49er fans on Sunday, while it's disappointing and while you would hope that Los Angelinos will get out there, um, you got to remember there's cultural and demographic issues that have haunted this team. And I think it's going to continue that way until they actually win a Super Bowl. I'm excited for the game. 49ers are a tough team, and they're a well-coached team. We'll see how it goes. But a win over the 49ers this week, if the Rams organization were to win the Super Bowl, but go through the 49ers in the NFC title game, it would be almost like a fantasy of sorts in many ways. That's the way to do it. That's the way to consolidate the heart of the city. This Los Angeles Rams team that's going to go on the field on Sunday has a chance to do what no other Rams team has ever done. Win the heart of the city by going through your longtime nemesis, a nemesis that kicked your ass all through the 80s and the 90s, for that matter, and a chance to get your first Super Bowl title in Los Angeles. It's a big game. We'll see how they do. You know, sports is sports, and anything can happen, and we will see. But understand that the Ram fan base has gone through a lot of ups and downs over the past 30 years. And I think that in and of itself explains why you're going to see a stadium with 40% 49er fans. And listen, when you have these rock solid fan bases, right, that travel, right? Let's think of who they are. 49ers travel, the Eagles travel, the Cowboys travel, the Packers travel. These are teams where their fan base are heavily invested because the organizations have rewarded these cities with titles and championships and lots of winning cities, right? I mean, you could argue maybe the Eagles maybe are the least winning team of those, but they did win a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And I think Philadelphia fans are just inherently different, right? It's more of a cultural thing, a phenomenon over there, right? I think teams in Los Angeles to a certain degree are always challenged because of what the city of Los Angeles is. The weather's perfect. There's so much to do. And like East Coast teams where when the weather gets cold, people don't go out much. I mean, I'm sure they go out some, don't get me wrong, but it's just different. There's less to do. And sports in your living room, in many respects, oftentimes when you live in cold climate areas like I do now, listen, being in a warm home, it's fun watching the game from your living room, let me tell you, okay? But in Los Angeles, where you got surfing and you got skating and you got all the outdoor activities, the weather is beautiful 12 months out of the year. If you don't win, your fans have plenty to be distracted by. And if you're not winning in Los Angeles, they're going to go find those other distractions, right? In LA, you either win or you go home. And the Rams haven't done that. Now, unfortunately, as a guy that's loyal to the Rams, I think that's a very fickle fan base, always has been in Los Angeles, right? They come 10 minutes late, they leave 20 minutes early. We've seen that with the Lakers. We've seen that with the Dodgers over the years, right? But those organizations have won, and you see a fan base that comes out for them. But for the Rams, they got to steal the heart of the city, and it starts by winning a Super Bowl. So that's a little short history. I could give you guys a lot more than that, actually, but I'll keep you short for now. So there you have it. Go Rams.